As usual, what's up, everybody? And welcome to the Huddle, where we come into weekly to discuss forward progress and maintaining that in your flooring career. Today, we're going to be talking about trainings. We hit on it every week. We're going to do kind of a deep dive in the importance of that. So we encourage questions. We'll have Q&A, so you can chat your question, and we'll do our best to address that during Q&A. So without further ado, joined with me as usual is Jose and Daniel of Preferred Flooring. And they are probably one of the biggest proponents of training. We certainly are as well, but out there in the industry, I think that it's pretty clear where they stand. And so maybe we can start with, was there a clear difference? Because I know you guys got started and was installing for a while, and then you got some certifications or some different trainings. Was there a clear difference before and after from, like, did you learn something that moved the pendulum for you, or was it a gradual deal?
I think so. If we start, like, even before we started getting certifications, I was kind of one of those people that was always like, why do I need to get trained in this? I do this every day. And then it wasn't until you actually go to your first training or certification where you're like, damn, I kind of been doing that wrong the entire time. And it wasn't like I was like, well, this is BS because I don't want to admit that I'm wrong. It's, I guess I got some things to work on, and it's just that one thing that you take away. So once we went through the trainings, it was kind of like, all right, we've been doing this not necessarily like completely wrong, but there was steps to it that we were missing. So it's like, all right, let's back everything up, start doing things the way they're supposed to be done, and then implementing that moving forward, and not doing it how we used to.
Yeah, definitely a change in perception, right? You don't know that you might not know everything until you learn something new, because that's all you know. And
You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, like Daniel said, you go into these classes. If you go in there thinking you know everything, you're completely out of your element. You're putting yourself in a bad spot. Humble yourself, go in there and be prepared to learn from the newest guy and the oldest guy in that class. But going in and learning something, like Daniel went through a lot more certifications than I have, right? Even though I have my first cert is all 20 plus years ago, Armstrong, but and I think I took a Mohawk Wood certification class on accident. I passed.
You got to be the first guy I've met that took a course on accident.
Yeah, when you come back with a little bit more information and you have those aha moments. So you start thinking back about past projects that you've done and you've had issues, or if you didn't have a shortcut, or if something failed, or if something just wasn't working right, and then you're like, I know what that is now. I know exactly what that is now. And that's
did that help you? One of the I think big benefits is just understanding you have a leg to stand on when you do have a claim. Did you find that helpful? If you've ever had a claim, I got a story about that myself, but when you have a claim, but you've been fully certified and you can, kind of prove that you did it the manufacturer's, per the manufacturer's instructions and per industry training. Have you ever leaned on that during a claim or anything?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you're in the flooring industry and you say you've never had something go wrong, or you've never had to bite the bullet and say you've made a mistake, or go back and rethink of the process and put it down on paper and say, you know what, I did do everything right.
Yeah.
If you say you've never had any one of those two, then you're just not telling the truth or nobody told you.
Well,
And
I
it's
mean,
just
there's some guys
crazy.
that'll have a claim, never been trained, and you know, I think there's a clear difference in vernacular of what you say in a claim when you're dealing with an independent inspector, or you're dealing with the claims department at a mill. There's a difference in what you if you don't know you didn't do it right. We had a claim long time ago, probably 15 years ago, and we've had other issues, but I'm just in this particular thing. Our installer was not certified at all. He'd been taught well. He had good hand skills, but he was never certified, never trained. And he clearly made some comments to the inspector, and the inspector put that in his report that he didn't do it per the instructions. Part of it's because he probably he wasn't trained properly. But the other part is years down the road, we've won claims because we were able not only show the guys certified, but in addition to that, he was able to recite the methods or the process he took in installation, and pretty much those types of things are what saved that particular claim, was that he was able to line by line talk about what he did and what processes he used, and it made a big difference. Like, it turned the whole thing around.
Right. And then we've been on, a claim or two where the actual manufacturer was like, well, this is your fault. And then you're like, whoa, but I'm certified. And then they're like, oh, hold on then. Let us take a look back. All right, we're going to cover it now.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing? Well, a lot of that is they're going to try to get away with, and not to get too deep into the claims, I would like to address that in a future episode. Like, I believe, man, if installers could get, the inspection training as well, to know the angles that are taken, there's a benefit there. But in just being trained on the flooring itself, it's almost as if on claims they go with, denying the claim and seeing if you take it, but if you know what you're doing and you've been properly trained, you can sure get yourself out of those, and rightfully so. Look, it was, I'm not making it like our guy was able to talk his way out of it. It was not a installation error. It was a manufacturer's defect, and we were just able to get there by them not blaming the easiest way, which is just to blame the installer.
Right. And it's not only the manufacturers, it's we've been into some spots where the actual people you're doing work for, so the store that you're working for, is like, hey, this is what's wrong with it, you guys got to go and fix it. And it's like, no, it's not our fault. And they're like, oh yeah, we hired an inspector. And then you're like, okay, well, we're going to hire an inspector too and send them out. And then you just magically never hear about that job ever again.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's actually a job we're getting ready to revisit now. So because of our honesty and our due diligence through that whole project, it's just one of those places that call us for everything they need for the flooring. And I'm very grateful for that.
What's your experience with the biggest, we've touched on this before as well. What do you guys hear when somebody, why they're not, what's the biggest hurdle or reluctancy to getting trained?
A lot of it is, we hear is, like I said, when you're like, why do I need to learn how to do this when I do it every day? I already know what I'm doing. So there's no point into me going over there so they can tell me what I already know.
Yeah. And that's hard to hear. And it's hard to hear because it's some commercial changes all the time, right? Residential might stay the same a little bit for like some carpet, but some techniques come out, new techniques, new installs, new backing,
New tools.
And there's a lot of things that if you're not keeping up with it, you're just falling behind, and you you don't put yourself in a position to be successful if you think you know everything and that's the way it's going to stay and remain. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah, new technology, new techniques, all that stuff comes out. So being up to speed on that stuff is important. But I would say, what about, you know, when we ran a survey for Go Carerra, we ran a survey trying to find out why installers don't get trained. And that was the number one reason. Number two was they don't know where to even go. It's like the industry is not doing a great job. They shoot out emails to flooring companies like myself, but they never get down to the installer level for information on where to get trained for a given discipline, whether it's carpet or tile or resilient or flash coving, heat weld, or, you know, wood flooring. And there's great trainings out there for just about every one of the disciplines. It's just a matter of knowing where they're at. That's part of our real goal here is we're almost finished, I should say, with a web page that'll have every training on every month, regardless of who's teaching it. I don't care who's teaching it. We just want to promote training and then get that out there. If it's recognized as an industry training, we want people to know where it's at and what it is and try to promote that as best as we can. But so that solves half of the two major kind of disputes about why to get trained. But how do you change the minds of somebody who says, you know, well, I'm not going to make any more money at it, or you know, it's not going to pay me. I got to take off time and pay for the training and pay for travel. How's that going to benefit me? Those types of deals. How do you kind of go against that?
I would say, look at what we're doing right now. If we would have never put ourselves out there and did something like that, we wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now. It's one of the best networking tools that you can get, as well as going to these certifications. And it's it's not only that you're learning, but you're also, you know, learning alongside someone that's probably has more experience than you. And then on the other side, someone that can probably learn something from you. So it's that whole networking aspect. It's not only are you learning about a particular material or something like that. It's, I'm going to go hang out with like-minded people and get that knowledge that I need.
That's a good point. The networking piece of that is, I mean, just having somebody to call and say, you know, hey, Daniel, I'm running up against this XYZ scenario. What would you do? Well, if you didn't never go to the training, you don't know who Daniel is, and you never formed any kind of relationship, you might not be able to do that. But I feel pretty comfortable that if I needed to get some advice, I could call you guys up and say, hey man, I got this scenario. What would you do? You know?
Right. We've seen a lot of stuff, and I actually get calls from some inspectors that I've done certifications with when they run into something that's like, hey, what's your thoughts on this? And it's like, you know what? I just went through a job like this. So this is what we found out.
And that's the benefit too, right? Is, and not only are you increasing your social capital, but you are also educating yourself through these trainings. So that way, when you do have a conversation, you are using the same terminology. Things are less likely to get lost in translation. Although, you know, one region might have a nickname for specific backings of some sort, but if you go back to the training where everything is kind of very specific, you can figure it out if you just have a couple minute conversation as to what terminology is being used. I remember, I mean, we still use funny words around here. We don't use the exact terms for a lot of things, but that's more from me to the guys, you know, from my sister to Daniel. But when we're out on a job site or we're talking to you or someone else, the terminology is a lot closer and tighter knit, and that's another benefit. Social capital, terminology.
You use the wrong terminology, you can get hung on a claim too.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, I found that I like to when somebody's saying something about, oh, I've been, I'm good. I've been doing this for 20 years. My uncle was the best ever, or whatever. I've heard, I can't count how many different stories, but when they tell me that, if you're just going to work with one company, or you're never looking to expand your client base as an installer, trying to work for more stores than just one, so you don't have all your eggs in one basket, or you're trying to work maybe with a bill directly with general contractors, or whatever your goals are for your company. The fact is, you may know you're great, but not everybody else does. And without the knowledge, whether it's certifications, some way to know that you're properly trained, no one else knows. It's just your word at that point. That's part of, what Go Carerra solves with the hammer rating. But at the same time, that the only way you get hammers, the only way you get your skill score up is education, affiliations, trainings, and experience. I mean, it's how you get good or increase your skill in anything. I've said it with doctors, or you don't want a foot doctor working on your spinal cord. You want to make sure they got the proper training, and that they have the initials behind their name to make sure that they're qualified to work on that piece of the body.
And just talking about, like doctors and stuff, I actually, my son's travel baseball team, there's actually, there's some nurses in there, some teachers, and I was picking their brains, and I'm like, what kind of continued education do you guys have to go through? And just the teacher, I talked to her a couple of weeks ago when we were in Tennessee, and she's like, we got to go through at least 100 hours of, continued education every year. And it's like, you think about that 100 hours, that's more than 2 weeks of your work time.
And that's just maintenance.
Yeah. And it's like, all these other professions are having to do this. And then I don't want to say our entire profession, everyone is like this, but a lot of people are like, I don't need this. And it just boggles my mind now.
It does mine too. Like, if you think about that statement, like, I don't need trained. It sounds kind of silly when you just say it. If you hear, if somebody would just listen to themselves and how that sounds, I don't need training. Well, you got it somewhere. You learned from your uncle or your cousin or your brother or your dad or grandpa, or whoever you learned how to install from. You got trained. We're just saying, go get the industry training as well. Back up your knowledge with that
right.
That certification or an industry training that helps support what you've already learned. And part of the deal was what you talked about earlier, is technology changes. I mean, adhesives changed greatly in the 90s, like when they took solvents out. And today they finally got, some good water soluble adhesives, but when they took solvents out, that was a big problem. It caused a lot of failures. Trainings, when you guys aren't really carpet guys, but back in the day, they came out with a unitary back carpet that was just, no secondary backing. And to get that stuff to stick to the floor at the same time when they're taking all the solvents out of the adhesives, there were some tricks that if you knew, unitary would do okay for you. If you didn't know,
unitary wasn't even the worst. It was Lee's carpet with the fiberglass backing. That was
the old wax back with the blue glue wet set. Yeah, I mean, that's
we're
another.
Still ripping that stuff out, man. It's so stuck around all the bubbles.
I was going to say, not very easily.
I want to add to the training portion too, because if people are having a hard time deciding whether or not training is what they need or if it's good for them, if you think about it in a different aspect, like what are your hobbies? As you go to work every day, and even if you sit in the office and your hobby is woodworking after work, you're going to do research, right? What is research? Research is training. You're going to want to find out more about the species of wood. What's, what is the better coating to put on it? How am I going to sand this? How am I going to shape this? If you're playing sports, if your hobby is, basketball or weight training, you're going to do research. What protein is good for me? Do I need to take protein at bedtime? What is the best diet? There's a science behind everything. So, and you're still going to do research. You're going to train yourself. That's research. Training, education / research. That's all grouped together. So you got to look at it like that, right? You're in the flooring
So what's the
industry.
benefit of doing a training, like an industry training versus learning on YouTube?
The networking. YouTube is you're listening to a direction from someone that you can't ask a question. If you go to a training in person, you're physically watching, you're there, you're on top, you can change your angle. You can say, can I see that again? Can you explain that to me again? Hold on, let me try that. What did I do wrong?
Right. And it all depends on who you're listening to as well, because on YouTube and all that, it's, you see some, let me go repair this with some caulk and call myself a professional.
Yeah, I
seen
think it's got a lot to do with who's teaching it, number one. And then number two, you brought up a good point with networking, but I would push that further to why. You can't ask a video, why did you do it that way? And if you're in person with an instructor, I know on the certifications I've went to and achieved, understanding why they did something a certain way that differed from the way that maybe I did it beforehand was a big help for me to understand how to install it. I was that kid that always asked why, and I still do that as an adult. I want to know why did you do it that way?
And then you can even kind of flip that, right? Because there's probably some things that you do that the instructor has probably never seen before. It's happened when I went to a certification and, I'm doing it and I'm explaining it some way and he's just watching me and he's like, you know what? I never thought about it like that before, but that's going to be the way I'm going to be teaching it from now on. So it's not just, you learning things. Like I said, it's you have a lot to offer too, and just bring that with you as well.
Yeah. If you're so good, you might just be able to help somebody else out. Hate to get, sappy about it, but for the installers out there that may be listening that have that attitude or approach that, I already know everything. Well, maybe sharing that knowledge could help too. These training entities, they're going to continue to grow. I believe the industry is pushing, more and more towards it. I see claims coming out and questionnaires that ask if you're certified, those types of deals. So I think the industry is pushing that way. So at the end of the day, being trained, industry trained by somebody, and then you giving some of your knowledge, you might know a trick that might, just like Daniel's example there, that might help somebody else out. So participation, networking, and learning goes a long way. You mentioned you wouldn't be here talking to me without it. There's a lot that I think it's benefited you guys. It's certainly benefited our company for embracing training. And that's all we're asking, like embrace training. There's a lot of good stuff going on out there in the tile world. They seem to be a little bit ahead of the other industry products, honestly. From a training perspective, I think, it's more of an artistic, or it's looked at as more of an artistic product. Although I would argue Resilient can be pretty doggone artistic. If you ever do a children's hospital, you'll find that one out.
Yeah. Any hospital.
Yeah, any hospital, but children's hospitals, they tend to get a little wild with colors and patterns. But point being is, the industry is moving that way. There's private companies and private organizations starting different training. Give a shout out to Tile Nation. They're doing, some pretty cool stuff with their gauge panels and the large format trainings for gauge porcelain panels. That's pretty cool. You know, I know that CFI continues to grow. They're here in Wichita. They're, you know, they have other training sites now. I'm hopeful that even more come out and that we can support the amount, because here's one thing that I would kind of throw out there to the industry. If the studies are correct and we're 8,000 below what is needed from an installer level, and that's going to grow exponentially, me being that the average age is somewhere around 53 to 55, depending on the study. How are we going to train all of those people, right? The industry has to step up and kind of widen their stance on it, I think, overall. But right now, it's not like you can't get into a class. So I think there's this dichotomy. They're like, well, when the demand's there, we'll increase the supply of training. So we need to, you know, understand that my ploy to the industry is like, be prepared, because as the wave comes in, because I think we'll backfill some of the need, and say 3,000 or 4,000 people need to be trained. How do you accomplish that? So hopefully the training entities are thinking of that and preparing for that. But right now, it's not like there's a waiting list. You can get to trainings pretty easily. I look at them weekly, you know, so go get trained, increase your abilities, maybe give back to the industry a bit, learn something, meet some new people, brand yourself a bit. I mean, all those things seem to be huge benefits to your business if you go out and do it.
Yeah, don't be scared to ask questions when you're in these places too. If you've ever wanted to ask a question, these certification classes are the place to ask them, because you're gonna realize one of two things: you were doing things the right way and you're gonna continue to do them, or you're doing them wrong, and this is the place where you can fix it.
Yeah.
That's a good point. You can either validate what you're doing, and that's always good, and you get a stamp of approval, so to speak, or you can learn the right way to do it and start implementing new techniques.
That's what it's all
Sweet.
about.
Well, what do you guys, do you guys have any trainings coming up, anything like that down the pipe here?
No, not for us. I was looking at some of the dates too, and that's another thing that might veer some installers too, is, you know, a lot of the trainings that people really want are like during the busy time, right? And that's a hard pill to swallow, but they do have some off-season trainings. You just got to be willing to travel, invest that time and that money. Like to look into getting more of our guys at least a certification under their belt. Just got to make sure that we're pushing it to their strengths and not putting them in a position to where they feel that they failed, right? Because we haven't passed every training that we've ever taken, or every certification, I'm sorry. But we got better, even though we didn't get the cert. So we got better. And we will continue to get better because of those experiences.
Well, kudos to you guys for looking at it that way, and, you know, approaching it where putting a guy in a certification or a training that matches their strength. I know I couldn't lay tile for the life of me, to be honest with you, ceramic tile, but I gravitated and did really well in carpet and sheet vinyl resilient side of things. So working towards people's strengths, I think is key. And then what their interests are, you know, what do you like doing?
Right. And don't feel intimidated, man. It's a place for everyone to learn. That's what we go there, is to learn. In one of the last certifications we went to, there was actually a gentleman from our hometown that traveled there too. And he goes in there and he's like, man, I'm so nervous right now. I feel so out of place. And, you know, just almost like he was really intimidated that we were there because we're kind of well known. And it's like, don't be like that, man. We're here to learn too. It's just stay the course. The most that's going to happen is you're going to learn something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was and that was, it came to the realization that, it's not always easy, guys, right? You're going to be uncomfortable in one of these classes or these certifications at some point. You're just going to have to accept that, right? You're just going to have to push through it and give it a go. Like I said, just because you didn't receive the certification doesn't mean that you failed. It just means that you need to brush up on it a little bit more than you expected. And the next time you go, you know what corrections need to be made. They're going to let you know.
Yeah, and every training I've been to, I've ended up, getting to know somebody that, was cool to hang out with. And even if that's the only time I seen him at that, you see him around at different shows and stuff. And everybody's always been really accommodating and nice at every single certification I've taken. Any of the guys that have went, it seems like it's always been they need you there. That's, the training entities need us to go and we need to go and learn. So it's obviously a win-win, but I don't think anybody should be intimidated. That's a little bit of ego sometimes, like almost worried about, being proven wrong or something. Look, go there to learn, go there only to learn, and you'll be just fine. I mean, that's my take anyway. See if we can get the training page posted. Yeah, posted in the chat. All right, let's see if we got any questions. I'll toss a couple questions out there that have been see, here's one pretty applicable. So why would I pay hundreds of dollars plus travel to attend a course that may only make me a little bit better than before?
You're still a little bit better than before. You
That
answered
little
your
bit
own
better.
question.
That's kind of a little bit better could be a lot of money over time. So
Right.
yeah,
It
I
could be
think
a different demographic too. That little bit better might push you past that threshold that you couldn't get by before, and you were wondering why not. That little bit at the end equals a lot.
could be the little bit you're missing. I mean, if you save a couple hours a day or per project because you learned something cool, even if it's just a little bit, that could equal out to a lot of money.
All you need to do from these trainings and stuff is take away one thing. If you took away one thing that can benefit you, you got to call that a win.
Amen. Okay, how about do companies really take into consideration the amount of certifications that an installer has? I think given if I'm choosing and I have the ability to choose between somebody who's certified and non-certified, and of course we use Go Carerra, so we see all the metrics of their hammer rating. But certainly that comes out in the hammer rating. Of course, I'm gonna hire, if I got two guys I don't know, I'm gonna hire the guy with the best rating. I mean, if that's the only metric I have at that point. Of course, if they've done a lot of work orders through Go Carerra and have a good kudo to work order ratio, that's another consideration. But I would say on my side, yeah, if I'm doing a woven wool carpet, I'd like to know that the guy's certified through PJ's course or something, through the, natural fiber certification.
Well, if you
What
put it in
about
the
you
form of
guys?
you put it in the form of a question like this, if you sit down and you're in a post bid or something like that, and they say, hey, you're X percentage over the other two companies that are here, why is that? And are you going to hire the person that answers with, because we have enough people to do it, I just don't know who's available at the time? Or are you going to side with the person who says, Yeah, we are a little bit more costly, but that's only because we use certified installers. That this is their niche. This is what they specialize in, and they put in the time and gotten the education to be the best at this particular product. I mean, that sells itself. It's not, you have to sell it a little bit, right? But the consumer doesn't know unless you tell them.
Yeah, I think it matters to general contractors, especially if you're doing a specialized flooring like a Protect All or something like that, or a certain epoxy flooring or wood flooring or even a specialized carpet. Yeah, you're probably not going to be asked for your certification card if you're doing some, carpet tile, but there's a lot more out there that, those things come in real handy, and I think companies do take it into consideration. Here's more of a statement. I've never lost a project just because of a certification.
We definitely would have lost some projects without some of the certifications that we had.
Right.
Yeah,
They called us specifically because we were certified, and it's like, really, you're the only ones over here, so it's,
Yeah,
what are you going to charge us?
And that's the networking thing too, is your name does go into a database. And if there is a particular customer that wants a specific item done by someone who is certified, they're not looking at, what's the bottom dollar. They're looking at who's the most qualified. And your name does go into that database. I mean, it's still up to you as a certified installer to come through and do it the right way and use your education to your benefit. But that's a real thing. That does happen, guys.
I'd have to ask a question back, like, how do you know what you've lost? Somebody just someone could have just decided that I'm going to go with this other guy because he did. I mean, you don't really know. That's a tough,
So you don't know what you lose.
like, how do you know for a fact you haven't lost work? How do you know somebody didn't choose another person because they were certified and you didn't get that? I mean, unless this person gets every single job they ever put their efforts behind.
That's a whole nother issue that we have.
Then I would encourage you to go back to a couple of weeks ago and raise your prices.
So, one way to look at it, and I don't speak for everybody, but if you are generating more revenue because of the additional phone calls you're getting, because of your certifications, but working less hours throughout the year, that's a reflection of your certification. But if you're still having to crawl around and grind day in and day out, and you're working 50 hours a week plus, but the revenue generated at the end of the year doesn't reflect the amount of work that you're putting in, that's a sure tell sign that you might be missing something, because certification doesn't necessarily mean you get paid more money. You just might draw the attention of people willing to pay the higher dollars and cents for those specific projects.
Well, it's that old saying, the old meme that's like, you're not paying me just to lay your floor, you're paying me for the years of education and trainings that it took in effort to get here. If you're that guy, but you're also not trained and certified, well, you're kind of, that's a misnomer. I mean, like, yeah, they're paying for your years of experience, your training, your education, your expertise. I guess that would be a good. Can you be an expert without being certified?
I would say yes.
Yeah.
How valid is that?
How do you prove it?
Yeah, because you can be certified, not an expert.
Yeah, you just say you're an expert. Or
Yeah,
that's almost like a self-proclaimed expert at that point.
Well, then you do look at these other professions, right? Like doctors and stuff like that. You go in their office and their certifications right there on the wall for everyone to see. This is where I went. That's where I got my certificate from. Then right next to it is their next one, and
Yeah.
they're very proud of the education that they got, and you should.
Yeah,
be.
I feel like if we had a little bit more pride in taking those courses and such, that I think CFI guys have the best culture around that piece of displaying their their certifications probably, just overall, not any in particular person, but you see that more. I think there's, several guys on the Go Carerra network that their profile picture is their CFI certification. So, so I guess you can be an expert. You can be really good, but again, nobody else knows. It's like when you're looking for backup in an argument, you're looking for someone to back you up. If you're like, ain't that right, Daniel? Well, that's kind of what a certification is to your expertise. Like, ain't that right, CFI? It's, or whatever training entity. I say CFI because it comes to mind the fastest, but it could be any of them. The point is that to not be a self-proclaimed expert, I would say you can be really, really good, but the word expert almost indicates education. I mean, that's my opinion. But
and since you mentioned CFI, if you just wanted to get a taste of kind of what the culture is like and stuff, convention is right around the corner, and we'd be more than happy to see everyone there. I mean, just come and hang out.
Yeah, August is CFI convention time, guys. Come out there. We'll have a booth. Go Carerra will. I believe you guys are going, right? And
we'll be down there.
Yeah, so come out and see us. I mean, love to chat more about not only CFI, because we'll be at the convention, but also just overall how to improve your business. If you have any questions, come see us. One last question before we wrap this thing up. We're here right at time limit, but why don't manufacturers offer trainings or certifications?
They do.
Some do. I think they're some of them have pulled back because of liability, them giving a certification.
That's why they call them trainings, not certifications, right? Because you can be factory trained but still not be certified.
Yeah.
And factory trained is just, it's all information, right? You get some hands-on, you get some written, you learn some terminology, and they're setting you up for success, right? To be better than you were yesterday. But it's not a certification because that would be, like you said, a liability on their part.
Yeah, I think that's why the biggest piece is liability. But at the end of some of these, I say at the end of the day all the time. That's like my saying, guys.
At the beginning of the day.
At the beginning of the day, it's really manufacturers, they still train, like you said, factory trained, and they still log it. Like it's still logged that you completed. I think they give completion certificates or something like that on some of them. I can't remember. Nora, though, is a factory certification. And I believe Forbo's is still a factory certification. So
Forbo stopped their certification, actually.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yeah, and they stopped theirs before COVID, so they can't even use that as an excuse. Whether they're going to revamp it and reopen it, no one knows. But I am also NORA certified, so.
Yeah, and I did talk to a representative from Forbo.
Well, come on, Forbo.
Well, they said they had to retract the certification because of some legalities, right? They were absorbing a little too much. I don't know all the details, but it was for legal reasons. And
well, what are they doing to backfill that? Does anybody know?
Don't know.
Like, I think Forbo's no joke. Some of that stuff
that is the class that we went through and did not pass. So
that is
you better be trained.
Yeah, that is the hardest. I would say that their level of acceptance is here, and you don't think that's that high, right? But yours is right here compared to what they have, and you think that you're pushing your limits, but you were not even close to theirs. I mean,
you're talking about them crawling around and like there's a pencil mark that's like an 1/8 inch right there. You're getting marked down for that.
Yeah.
So,
learned a lot, and
I'll
just never forget it. I'll never forget it.
I'll have to reach out to Forbo. That's surely they're going to do something. It's just their products aren't that easy to work with, frankly.
Right.
A lot of them and really need that.
I was never really comfortable working with it until we went through
Love
that.
it.
Now it's
Love it.
like, oh, 4-boom, I'll do it all day long.
I got some vertical installs that I'm getting some numbers together on right now, actually. So
Huh. Yeah, I'll have to
No.
reach out to them.
And then since we're live right now on like Facebook and YouTube, LinkedIn, we got a comment that from someone that's in the union that used to be non-union, and he said the schooling that he received helped him big time. That's where you learn all the tips and tricks you can't learn on your own.
yeah. And
Love it.
Union's a very good advocate for training, man. Like, they got a long process, right? But they are very, very focused.
I do wish they would open up because there's such a large part of our community that is independent, non-union, that they would open up their training to non-union people and charge for the training,
Yeah, it could generate more revenue. for them.
something like that, because I do think they've done a wonderful job. Most of the time you get, a union guy that's been doing it for a while. You can have pretty good confidence in their abilities,
And,
That's-
and after that,
Right.
he said it's an investment, which we talked about, was that last week, about
Yeah.
investing. So,
Yep.
and then Danny Sherman from Wolf says he'll be at CFI convention. So you got to go see him too.
Danny, my brother. Everybody calls us twins, especially when I grow out my beard a little bit. It says we're the same.
Now I want to get a picture of you two together.
Well, you'll get your chance in Orlando for sure.
Excuse me, one minute.
All right, guys. Well, I appreciate everybody
Oh,
joining.
yeah.
Thank you guys for coming on again. It's always a pleasure every week. I look forward to
having
this.
us.
So my pleasure. And I think we got through everything, and I don't see any other questions. So
Oh,
well,
Danny did put right here, my twin.
my twin.
look at this, you guys, like, even though I know what we're gonna talk about, I still take notes, right? As part of the learning process, I still want to be better at what we're doing, and I want to review and go over what we talked about to make sure that I'm doing myself favors later on. So it's,
Doesn't matter what it's in, just never stop learning.
Yeah, go back to last week. Invest in yourself. Right? Yeah. Work hard at it. I love it. All right,
All right.
fellas. Thanks
We'll see you
again.
next week.
Signing off. We'll see you next Tuesday.
a good one.
Bye.